Hey, welcome everybody to lesson 3, which is week 4, but lesson 3 of our wonderful forest therapy program. And I'm excited about how all of you are doing. It is so exciting to see you now getting out there and being in the forest. This lesson, we're going to take some of those things that are in our structure of forest therapy and dive a little deeper into them. You've gotten the structure, you've heard about the invitations and the qigong and earthing and a little bit about that opening up the senses with a guided journey. Well, that's what we're going to dive deeper to this week. And of course, everything in this, don't feel like you have to be an overnight success in it. Every time you lead people, you're going to learn more. You're going to like know that you're getting better and better, right? And you're going to feel more comfortable about these things. So I'm excited. I want to get started. And I'm going to go kind of in a different order than in our book. But part of that is because I'm just so excited about earthing. Okay. Earthing is one of the things in our forest therapy practice that I really kind of carve that out as a specific thing that we want to make sure we do in our forest therapy. There's a lot of other forest therapy, forest bathing practices out there that really don't specifically address this. And while there could be those opportunities that somebody is earthing, and I'll talk about that specifically, what that means in just a second, because they're out there, they're touching things or maybe sitting on the ground. I want us as guides to make sure that our people get 20 minutes of an earthing practice interwoven into this forest therapy session. So, what is earthing and what is grounding? Because sometimes people will use those terms interchangeably. Earthing to me is the very specific practice of connecting to the electromagnetic energy that runs through the earth. It is a measurable but yet very small wavelength, but it runs through the earth. It's a natural thing. It's not a man-made thing. It is the natural earth's energy. And everything that evolved on earth evolved touching that energy. But we humans, about 100 years ago, actually, when rubber-soled shoes started to be produced, we started not being as connected to the earth anymore. We would put on our wonderful, comfortable rubber-soled shoes and go outside. And just like how an electrician will wear rubber-soled shoes so they don't get electrocuted if they accidentally connect two things together, it's the same thing. We are disconnecting ourselves from the energy of the earth. Sometimes people will also call this grounding. And the reason why I get specific and call it earthing is in the energy realm of meditation and qigong, the term grounding can also mean meditatively connecting to the energy of the earth. So you could be sitting in the 3rd floor of a building and meditatively thinking about connecting your body's energy down into the earth and then pulling that energy up. And I'm not saying that I do that kind of grounding practice all the time, my energetic roots, but it's not my physical body connecting to the physical earth, right? And so that's kind of a difference between the term of grounding is energetically connecting. Earthing means physically connecting. So I brought a toy because it's just fun to always have. This is why I'm so excited, because it's a toy. But this might be a toy, and I ordered it off of Amazon. It might be something that you get when you're talking to people about earthing. And so this is what it looks like. It's called the energy rod, and it was not very expensive. And what's fun about it is when I put my hand on the metal part on this side, and then I put my hand on the metal part on this side, oh my gosh, it lights up and it makes noise, okay? what I'm doing is I am creating an energy loop, right? There's a little battery inside here that's putting off some energy. And when I connect the two sides, then it makes all the lights flash and everything go off. So it's like when we step our bare feet down onto the ground, energy flows, right? But let's say somebody says, well, I don't want to wear my bare feet on the ground, right? I want to wear my socks. Well, so here's just a cotton sock. So I have my little energy rod. I put my cotton sock. Nothing happens, folks. It's too thick, right? I'm not earthing, okay? So how can we allow that cotton sock to allow us to earth? Energy flows through water, right? It's why they say don't swim in a swimming pool in a lightning storm, because it's going to transmit it very easily. So this is just my bottle of water that has a little bit of essential oils in it to keep bugs away. But it's mostly water. And so if you had your foot in this sock and you sprayed the bottom of this sock, make it a little damp, and now there's a connection. Okay, so why did I show you my sock and fun thing demonstration? It's because when you are designing your earthing session for people, you want to give them options. Some people are totally fine with whipping off their shoes and sitting down and staying in one place with their feet on the ground and being very connected. And some people are going to be like, I have never taken my shoes off outside and I'm not about to start. Can I keep my socks on? Yes, but you're going to want to moisten the bottom of those socks so that there is a connection. Let's say somebody says, I ain't taking my shoes off at all. Now, how do we earth, right? Well, if we think about it, all of our plant friends are very connected to the earth. Well, maybe not if there's a plant in a bucket, right? But anything that has its roots down into the earth is itself earthing, right? So trees, grasses, flowers, shrubs that are planted in the earth are all connected to that. And when you touch their leaf, if you hold their leaf between your fingers, you are connecting to that energy. It doesn't matter if your whole body's connected or if it's just one cell of you connected to one cell of a plant. There is that flow of energy. And so you might encourage them then to sit down in a comfortable chair, and maybe their fingers just go down and touch the grass on the ground or touch a plant that's next to them. You're going to make sure it's not a poisonous plant, right? So that they're safe. And that's a way that they can very comfortably be earthing. Another aspect of earthing that works great in the summer and the fall, but we want to encourage people to earth in all seasons. We can do forest therapy in all seasons. And so what if it's cold outside? What if there aren't any green leaves that have any water in them? Because water is what's making this much more conductive. Then what do we do? Well, that's when we use a copper wire. And copper is one of the most electrically conductive metals. So that's why we pick copper. And it's pretty easy to find copper wire. And what you would want to do is push that copper wire into the ground, and then they're going to hold the other end. So if they have gloves or mittens on, well, they can sneak that wire right into the palm of their hand and hold on to it. One end in the ground, other end in their hand. Another thing that we have here is we ordered copper plates. And again, they're off of Amazon, and they're maybe like 1 foot by 2 foot, and taped a copper wire down in the bottom of it so that you could really poke it down further in the ground. But then we have this copper plate on a bench so that people can sit on the bench and they can just put their hand on the copper plate. right? And if they've got gloves on, but they moisten their gloves, right, that can help it conduct. Or if they take their glove off and they can put their hand right on it. So investigate what kind of copper you might use as a part of your forest therapy session. Copper wire, pretty easy to carry along with you, pretty easy to, wherever you're at, poke it into the ground and hold the other end. So those are different ways that you can use this earthing practice as a part of your forest therapy to get the best results. They say that 20 minutes is pretty much, you can go longer. You can earth for an hour and a half and it'll be wonderful, but you at least want to have 20 minutes. So that's where you're going to think of what kind of practice or invitation you can have people be still or be connected in that way. The earthing book is really informational, gives a lot of statistics. So if your clients who are taking forest therapy with you want to know more about it, you can explain to them more about what it's doing for their health. The biggest thing is that when we are earthing, we are reducing the inflammation response within our body. And the inflammation response is what causes so many health issues. Everything from high blood pressure, hypertension issues, immune system issues, they're all kind of rooted in inflammation. So if we can reduce inflammation, it can make a big impact on people's health. Now, one 20-minute session isn't going to last a month for people, okay? But what we can encourage people to do is we can explain to them, once they go home, how they might incorporate doing an earthing session for themselves every couple days, right? Go out and sit in your backyard and put your hand in the grass. Now, I've had people ask me these questions, so you might have people ask these questions too. One person said, well, what if I just put a lot of dirt in a box and I bring the box in my living room and put my feet in the dirt? Is that earthing? No, that's not earthing, right? Because even though you're connected to the dirt, that dirt is not connected to the earth now. What people can do to earth inside, though, is there's a number of products that have been created, and earthing.com is a website where you can find different products, and some of them I have. There are mats that you can buy that you can put underneath your desk, and you can kick your shoes off and put your feet without socks on that mat, and you will be getting the electromagnetic energy. And the way it works is you're plugging it in to the outlet, the electrical outlet in the wall. Your electrical outlet should have 3 prongs. I'm not sure in Europe, but I'm guessing it's the same thing. There's a ground wire there, and that ground wire literally goes down into the ground, and it's to help if something shorts to take it down into the ground. But because that ground wire in that outlet is connected to the earth, it's also bringing that earth's energy up. So when you plug that in, it's not using any of the electrical current that comes through 2 of those prongs. It's only using the energy that comes from that ground wire to feed into that mat so that you are connected to the earth. When you buy one of these, it will actually even send you a little tester, and that little tester you plug into your outlet, and it will tell you if your electrician wired your house right? Because if they cheated and they didn't attach that ground wire to anything that goes into the ground, you'll know, it will tell you that with that tester. So there's mats you can put underneath a chair. There's sheets that you can have on your bed. And so I have a sheet on my bed. I have a twin size sheet, and I just lay it across the bottom so that the bottom of my legs and my feet are on that sheet. And what my husband and I both found is that when we use the sheet, grounding sheet, the earthing sheet, I'll say, the earthing sheet, that we sleep deeper and we don't seem to need as much sleep. Like we wake up feeling really rested. And there are times where I've actually taken the sheet off of the bed because sometimes, like, I love to sleep. Like, sleeping is, if I had a hobby, a secret hobby, it's sleeping. Okay. And I want to like to sleep as long as I want. And so sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want to wake up at 5 and think it's time to get up. I want to sleep a little more. So there are times I would take the earthing sheet off just so I could sleep longer. You know, it's a little silly, but to me, it's that validation of, there's something happening with this because it feels good. There's times where, especially times where we feel like maybe we're coming down with a flu or something, man, I make sure that that sheet is on there, plugged in, and it really, I feel, really helps us. I live out on 88 acres. I have plenty of opportunities to just be out there earthing, but like I know all of us, sometimes it's hard to figure out how to fit that in. And so I love having these tools that on the days, especially where I don't get to be outside and don't get to spend that time connected to the earth, that I have an alternative. So those are some things. I don't get paid anything from the people from earthing.com. There are other companies you could do that, purchase items from, but it might be something that you want to consider, or it might be something that you share with your clients. I will say, as you are looking at this as a business, every time there's an opportunity for you to make an affiliate sales fee, right, in something you believe in, not if you don't believe in it, then no, but I know that they sell earthing.com products on Amazon. I know that you can get an Amazon associate account, meaning that every time you use your Amazon associate link for that product and share that with somebody on your website or your Facebook page or whatever, and they purchase it, you will make a little bit of money. And so if it's things you believe in, like products like this, take that opportunity, right? We all want to have multiple streams of income. And so we're using that as a way to share with people about their health, but also get something back. Okay. That same thing works. I know we've talked about the health in people's homes. And as a part of what we are doing as ambassadors to nature, right? We're going to be educating people on the different things we can do. And you've all shared way cool things that you do in terms of recycling, upcycling, looking at how we use our electricity, all of those things. Well, one of the things that many people come to forest therapy for is to improve their health. So another thing that you might talk about with people along that health aspect is taking a look at the chemical load within their home. Okay. What kind of cleaning products are they using? What kinds of things are they bringing into their home in terms of like new furnishings or other things they might like to buy, right? All of those things might off-gas different chemicals. So if you're going to educate people about healthy cleaning products, again, that's another thing that you might have sources for them. You can go to my website and look under healthy cleaning products, and I have some links there of suggestions of products I believe in. And again, you can make an affiliate fee. Okay, so I'm just trying to look at different ways that you can use this to boost your income and be as abundant as you want to be in something that you love. Okay, so anything else that I want to talk about with earthing? I think I might come back to it, but I want to make sure I have time to talk about other things here. Okay. Earthing is just one of the things that we do in that forest therapy session. But as you know, that session is made up of various segments, right? The segments where we're waking up our body and doing some movement with qigong, and then doing some conscious walking. But then the next piece, like waking up our senses and then doing these invitations or these practices. And in the Forest Guide to Forest Bathing book, he has such wonderful practices. And in your workbook this week, I've also shared practices in there. And I'd like you to think about these practices in terms of 4 elements. And for those of you who have studied a 4-element system of things, those elements refer to everything that is in the world, right? Everything that the world is made of. So it's talking about earth, air, fire, and water. And when we think about that, you're like, oh no, Luann, there's more things than earth, air, and fire and water. Well, they're talking about those in kind of general terms. Earth refers to everything that is physically solid, right? So it's the dirt, the rocks, but it's also the trees. It's us. We have a physical solid body, right? There's aspects of earth in everything that has a physical solidness. Air is the invisible, right? It's what we're breathing, but it's everything that floats and moves and is gaseous, right? It's that everything that is in the atmosphere. That is what our air is. And then fire, we tend to think of it as just a candle or a campfire. And in the world today, with fires everywhere, having candles as a part of a forest therapy practice is not what we want to do, but there's plenty of other ways to think about that element of fire. Fire is the sun. It is the light. It's also everything that is moving, right? We have a fire energy of movement within us. The squirrels and the birds and the insects, they all have a life force, a fire. And we think of that fire as our spirit, our soul connection. And then water is everything that is liquid. It's not just water itself, but it's anything that has a liquid form to it. And water is also very deeply connected to our emotional selves. So each one of these 4 elements, like the earth is going to be working with the energy of our physical body. Air is working with our mental thoughts and our clarity. Fire is working with our passion and our spirit. And water is working with our emotions. And so if you're thinking about how do I create a forest therapy session that is going to be about creating mental clarity, maybe you're going to work with a group of people who are feeling very mentally overwhelmed. Well, then you might look at more of the air practices within a forest therapy session. Air practices can be taking a blanket and laying down on the ground and watching the clouds, right? We're watching what's going on in the air. We're observing that. Or an air practice could be conscious walking and every step taking a breath in and noticing, what do I smell? And then focusing, okay, I think I smell a flower, turning, seeing what direction do I think that flower is in, right? And being very connected to that sense. Or air is also what we hear. Sound goes through the air. So an air practice might be walking and noticing what you hear and following the direction of the sounds. So that's how you can work with an air practice. And even though you're thinking, well, I don't know how that clears myself out mentally, but truly by invoking and working with those practices of air, it's going to create a mental clarity effect. Okay. Practices with earth are a lot of working with rocks and stones and crystals, because a lot of people relate to that as being the earth energy. And so one of the practices that we can do with that is something called power walking. And I know power walking is a term, I don't know that people power walk anymore, but probably about 20 years ago, power walking was like walking really fast like this, power walking, right? This power walking is not like that at all. This power walking is stepping into your intuitive power. And as you slowly, consciously walk, you are aware of what might be calling to you. And so if a part of a earth practice is going to be to find your rock that is your friend for this forest therapy practice, right? And so you're going to tell everybody, we're going to power walk. You're going to walk slowly, and you're going to be aware of the different rocks you might see. And there's going to be one that feels like it calls to you. Use your imagination. And maybe it calls to you because it's shiny and you see the sun glinting off of it. Or maybe it calls to you because it's a different color than the other rocks around it. Those are all ways that something might call to somebody. It doesn't have to be like they think the rock is going, hello, Luann, come over here and pick me up, right? So working with rocks and crystals is a way that people can connect with earth energy. And it's also doing it with respect, right? We've talked about respecting the trees and the plants and asking them about, may I touch you, having that invisible conversation. Well, the same thing with the rocks, right? A rock might call to you, but then before you pick it up, you ask it, may I pick you up? May I move you from this spot? Do you want to be in my hand? And imagining a response, right? So in your workbook, you'll find different earth practices that you can do. You'll also find different fire practices that you can do. And these fire practices work a lot with the other beings that you might see in the forest, the squirrels, the birds, but as well as the trees. We're acknowledging the trees as beings, living beings as well. And so they have that life force energy. And that also is our fire. Water practices are also outlined in there. When you incorporate the water practices, I want you to be aware that that could allow people's emotions to flow. And that's not a bad thing necessarily. That could be exactly what somebody needs. When those emotions are released, and tears could come, it's not what we want. We don't want to be saying, it's okay, you don't have to cry, you can stop now, right? That's not what we want to do. We want to allow people to express themselves. We want to allow them to have that good cry if that's what they need. What we do want to do, though, is not end our forest therapy practice with a water program, right? We want to have the water invitation, and then after that, do something that grounds them, connects them, having an earth process after that. So being aware of how each one of these elemental practices might affect your participants and structuring it in a way, because when they leave, you want them to feel grounded and connected and whole and better, right? If you end your forest therapy session and you can tell that somebody is really shaken, right, and somebody isn't, it is your responsibility to make sure before they set out into the world today, that they feel supported. Maybe you feel you want to talk to them and say, do you want me to call your emergency contact number? Is there something I can do for you? You know, be prepared that you might need to spend a little bit extra time with somebody if something has really been deeply ignited with them. And there's nothing wrong with sharing with somebody that we're not therapists, right? But encouraging people, if they've uncovered something that they hadn't realized was there, that there's nothing wrong with seeking a therapist. There's nothing wrong with finding a therapist to talk to about what they have uncovered in forest therapy. Okay, so You're going to enjoy reading about all of those different processes. And there's a couple fun things that you can also do in a forest therapy practice that you might not have thought of as forest therapy. And a lot of times it's because in forest therapy, we feel like, well, we need to be out or we have to have a tree or something like that. And you don't, right? You can do forest therapy with any other kind of plant that you can connect with. Many times we can use something like a labyrinth, or working on making a mandala, all as a part of a forest therapy session. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what is a mandala, what is a labyrinth, because these might be fun things that you incorporate into a forest therapy practice. A mandala, I know you guys have all seen it. They're a beautiful circle. And there's a lot of Tibetan monks that will make beautiful sand mandala paintings that are they don't last forever. They only last until the next rain comes and it washes it away. These mandalas are circular. And then within that, if you think of like when you look through a kaleidoscope, and as you turn that kaleidoscope, beautiful different round images appear that have a pattern, right? You might turn it and the purple blotch there might be 8 purple blotches, and then you turn it a little more, then there's 5, right? And the pattern changes. Well, a mandala captures like one of those kinds of images. So how would you use a mandala in a forest therapy practice? Well, one way I've done it is I've printed out different mandalas that are like that you color in. And as a part of their earthing piece, where they're going to sit in a chair and maybe have their bare feet on the ground, or some people like to sit on the ground. Not everybody's body is bendy enough to sit on the ground, but I have colored pencils or crayons and this mandala that they can color in, right? So that is one way you can do it that is age appropriate. Nobody has to really understand anything about mandalas. It's just a way to connect with color and light. And mandalas were used for meditative purposes. That when you could stare into the mandala, it could transport you, act like a portal into another dimension. I just learned some other information about what they're finding about a lot of the mandala paintings that are in India, is there is a relationship to, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the practice of semantics, but it's the study of sound waves and how sound waves can create different patterns. So if you had like a drum with some sand on it, and then you played different tones, the sand actually bounces around and makes different geometric patterns. Well, they're relating the fact that the way these different mandalas patterns look resonates with different tones and sounds, and that there's actually those mandalas could be almost like a recipe, almost like a musical score for different tones and sounds. So there's so much mysticism around mandalas. That's one way you could incorporate it very simply with coloring. But another way is if people actually gathered small pebbles or stones or tiny flowers, asking each one if they could be a part, and as a part of their earthing practice, sit and create that circle out of things. Other times I've supplied people with different little colored stones and bits of glass with a little plate with sand on it, that they could make a little circular mandala and put things where they want. So mandala is one way that you can bring that into a forest therapy session and have people have a focus. A different way is with a labyrinth. And a labyrinth, there's many, many different types of labyrinths, patterns of labyrinths. But the difference between a labyrinth and a maze is when you walk into a labyrinth, there are no choices to make. There's no like, oh, do I turn right or do I turn left? You just keep, there's only one path and you just keep following it around. When you reach the center in a labyrinth, that is the point where you're asking, you can meditatively ask your questions and be open to answers. And then as you're walking your way back out of a labyrinth, you're being open to receive those answers with whatever you might see or feel or sense or smell. Sometimes you have a park that has a labyrinth, and that could be a beautiful thing to incorporate into a forest therapy session. I have also drawn labyrinths with chalk in parking lots so that, and they're simple labyrinths, but they're pretty easy to make if you just use a seven circle, which is in the workbook for this week, a 7-circle labyrinth, circuit labyrinth that people can walk within. So when I've had forest therapy training here, I've had classes where people have made a labyrinth in my parking lot, and then they walk it, right? So again, you can think of various different ways that don't always involve trees, that you are connecting, you are being in nature, and you are focusing your mind on something else. Okay. Another piece of forest therapy sessions is that movement piece at the beginning, warming people's bodies up. And I call it the yoga and qigong. And I know qigong is a funny looking word, but it's QI, or sometimes you can see it as CHI, is chi, and it means energy. And gung or kung means study. So qigong means energy study. And yoga is one particular way that we work with our body's energy, right? We do a study, we do a practice of yoga. But qigong has many, 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 many different types of movement, many types of qigong. So qigong is like a global term. And my husband teaches qigong, and he teaches a very specific Taoist tradition of qigong exercises and movements, but you don't have to do those as a part of what you are teaching people to do with forest therapy, right? Maybe you already have an energy and movement practice that you love. And when I say energy, it means truly thinking about what's going on in your body as you do this movement. I see so many people who will do a workout, or they're out walking and they have headphones on and they're listening to a podcast and they are kind of totally disconnecting to their body, right? That is not a qigong practice, right? Because you're not connecting to the energy of your body as you're doing the movement. But let's say as you're walking, you're very conscious to how your feet feel on the ground, very conscious to what you're listening to around you. Then that is a form of a qigong practice, right? Because you're very focused on how you're moving. In this week's lesson, you're going to see various different types of yoga positions, and I'm sharing some videos of Ted doing some qigong, so that you can get some ideas around what kind of movement and warm up you want people to do. The biggest piece, two biggest pieces, I guess I want to say, that why we're doing this is, one, what we're doing in forest therapy, even though we're not moving a tremendous amount of distance, it's not like we're taking a 3-mile hike, but we are asking people to move. So part of it is just loosening up, limbering up, stretching their muscles a little bit so that they have that warm up. The other piece to it is something you may or may not share with your forest therapy clients, but part of it is that our body has meridians of energy, rivers of energy within it. That's why acupressure and acupuncture work, is because it's working on these different rivers of energy. And what can happen is through various things that happen in our life. It could be you bump your arm against the doorway and now you have a little bruise on it, and that bruise is because the blood kind of congealed there. Well, you've of blockage, right? You've got a blockage of the blood, but you also have an energy blockage, right? The energy that would normally run through those meridians kind of got stuck. The other thing that can cause blockages is emotions, right? Our emotions run through our body and sometimes they get stuck in places. And so emotions like grief tend to be stuck in our lungs. Emotions like anger tend to get stuck in our liver. And so these different meridians that feed those organs could also have stuckness in them. So some of the things that we do to warm up is to kind of move those blockages out of the way. And so some of these movements might seem a little silly, but that's okay. It's always good to have a good laugh. And you might just tell people, you know what? We're just going to shake it off, right? We're just going to shake off the day, shake off what you're worried about, and have them do a good old Taylor Swift shake, 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 right? And while it might seem a little silly, that shaking movement has been used for centuries by the shamans as a way of getting ready to enter into different realms, right? To shake off all of the energy. So we might just make a joke out of it and shake, 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 but it's got a deep and long history and purpose. And I'm just shaking my hands, but you might encourage people to shake their whole bodies, right? Stamp their feet, really, really get that movement, really let it all out, right? And here's the challenge: as the leader, you've got to do it too, right? Which feels a little silly at the beginning, but that's okay. As you do it, you are encouraging others to maybe look a little silly too, and that's okay. We can all just laugh at ourselves. But doing that release allows them then to really be able to absorb all of the wonderful energy that nature has to bring into us and to help us heal. So another piece to our forest therapy session is that next piece of opening up the senses, right? And it means that we're going to be the one telling people how to open up their senses. And we call it sort of like a guided journey. And if you're somebody who has studied processes that lead people on guided journeys, this part might feel like a piece of cake to you. But if you haven't ever led anybody on a guided journey before, it can feel a little bit intimidating, right? To lead people through that process of, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? And when you first start out, when you haven't done guided journey work with people before, there's a tendency to just want to get it over with, right? And so you talk faster and you're like, what are you seeing? Okay, what do you hear? Okay, what do you smell now? Okay, that's good. And it's because of your nervousness. And that's okay. It's okay to be nervous. But here's the key. You want to slow yourself down so that they will slow down. And you have to think of it almost like you're giving a performance, right? And it's going to feel so weird the first few times that you do it. And just accept that it's going to feel a little weird. But the key is, you do want to slow yourself down, because energetically that gives them permission to slow down. So you want to do these same things along with them. So you might say, okay, I'm going to have you stand and look at this tree or this plant And I want you to take a deep breath in. We'll take it in together. Ready? Let's take a deep breath in and in and in. And you're breathing in, okay? You're breathing in as you're talking. Okay, now hold it, hold it. And now let's breathe out. Okay, so even if they didn't do it exactly at the same time as you are demonstrating to them the pace that you want them to be at, right? You're doing it along with them, breathing in, making it audible, and then breathing out. Now, you're putting on an act, but here's the thing. Your body's also doing it too. You are slowing yourself down. The other things you want to think about is you're slowing down your speech. So if you normally talk at this kind of pace, but you're going into the guided journey part, you're going to very consciously start slowing your speech pattern down. You may also want to deepen your voice a little bit. And as you deepen your voice, it again just sets a tone, right? That we are relaxing. We are releasing whatever worries and cares, and we are opening up our senses. So I know that's just a tiny demonstration, right? But I hope it gives you that sense of how you can just shift into that guided journey mode. Now, a lot of you who do guided journey work, are used to having people in a chair, eyes closed, going on an imaginative journey. And for those of you who've never done that with anybody before, well, that's not what we're doing in forest therapy, because we don't have a chair. We're not having them close their eyes. At this point, we're having them be there and experience nature. So they don't have to close their eyes. It's really about what is it that you see? Really looking at it, really observing it. There might be then a point where they feel comfortable with everything that they've observed around them, and now closing their eyes so that they can tune in more to what they hear, right? Sometimes we have to shut down one sense in order to really notice a little bit more with another one. So leading them through eyes and ears and nose, what do skin feel? What does it feel like? What does the air feel like? What does it feel like beneath our feet? And we can also add taste. And taste is tricky when you're just out there. I know there's some forest therapy schools that are like, take this leaf, put it in your mouth. I get a little nervous about that with people. So I just tell them, open their mouth and breathe in through their mouth, right? And what does the air taste like? Perfectly safe. So we are working with all of those senses. And once we've tuned into all of those senses, now it's time for that imaginative guided journey. And so that imaginative journey is allowing them to imagine that they are saying hello to that tree that they see over there. They don't have to be touching it. It can be one that they see off in the distance. And they can imagine that they can send that thought just over to them. They could imagine that they send that thought down into the ground and connect to the tree's roots, right? There's a lot of different ways you can have them imagine it. So that what I guess I'm telling you is there's no right or wrong when you do these journeys, right? You're going to lead them through the beginning of this process. Now, it's not up to you to tell them what the tree is telling them, right? You're just guiding them through that connection. And then you're going to say, maybe ask the tree if there's anything it wants you to know about what it's like to be a tree. And I'll be quiet now while you imagine what the tree would tell you. And that way it's open for whatever they want. Now, some people might get a whole big download of tree and its history and all of that. And some people might be going like, I don't know that the tree's talking to me, but it's got pretty green leaves, right? It doesn't matter. Whatever they get, there's a reason why that's the message they got. This guided journey doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be long to be powerful, right? It can be, quite frankly, as short as 5 minutes, but if they've tuned into their senses and they've ignited their imagination, then we are ready for the rest of the forest therapy invitations. A piece around this is the talking part, right? At the beginning of our forest therapy process, before we do anything, we're going to explain to people that we're really doing this in silence, and there will be opportunities for you to share at different points around your experience. And after this guided journey is one of those places where you probably do want to have a circle sharing, where people can share in a sentence, or depending on the size of your group, maybe they get one word, something that they saw or sensed or felt or heard as a message. So those are the things I wanted to cover today. And in your homework assignments, you are going to be choosing some different practices, one from each of the 4 elements to work with for yourself, and see how they feel. You're going to look at the yoga and qigong, and you're going to determine maybe none of those are what you want to lead people through, but how you are going to lead people through working with their body, getting warmed up, and then shaking off what they don't need. You're going to practice a guided journey, meaning I want you to record yourself. I know, terror, but everybody has a cell phone that probably has a voice recorder on it. And I want you to record yourself doing the guided journey that you would do to open up the senses and then connect with something in nature. And then after you record it, I want you to listen to yourself and notice what you might change. Okay, maybe it'll be absolutely perfect, and then you just give yourself an A+. But even though it can be kind of terrifying to record yourself and then listen to yourself, it is a great way to learn what you might want to tweak and change. And then finally, earthing practice. I want you to practice some earthing. Even if you don't do the rest of the forest therapy, I want you to come up with a way that over the next couple weeks, you can get several real earthing practices in for yourself, because I want you to notice if it makes a difference for you. Because as it makes a difference in how you feel, you're going to be able to describe that even better to your clients. And who knows what kind of difference you could truly make in their lives. All right. I'm excited to hear about what happens in this week for you. And everybody who's here live, just hang on. And everybody else, I will see you in Facebook.